Hello, this is Max. The man went to Jerusalem and fought for it in order to protect it. Don't forget to subscribe. The film commences during the winter of 1184 in France, where a group of men is seen digging a grave. This grave is for a woman who did the unthinkable. A priest notices a cross around the deceased woman's neck and discreetly takes it. Shortly after, a contingent of crusaders arrives, allowing the men to proceed to the village. The priest immediately instructs his companions to mutilate the body before burying her, as the unthinkable act is, according to Catholic beliefs, a serious crime. We are then introduced to Baldwin, a grieving widower who is losing faith in both life and religion. He was ostracized by the entire village after his wife did the unthinkable after giving birth to a stillborn child. Subsequently, we meet Godfrey and Hospitaller, with the latter informing Godfrey about Baldwin's plight and the woman they saw about to be buried being his wife. Godfrey, who is actually Baldwin's father and the Baron of Evelyn, approaches the blacksmith and invites his son to accompany him to the Holy Land, Jerusalem, as there is nothing left for him in their current village. However, Baldwin declines and Godfrey departs. This turn of events aligns with the priest's sinister agenda. He is Baldwin's corrupt half-brother, who desires his siblings' wealth and aims to eliminate him to claim his property. The priest visits Baldwin at the forge at night, attempting to persuade him to pursue Godfrey. He also reveals the horrifying mutilation of Baldwin's wife's body before burial, resulting in Baldwin's rage. Discovering his wife's cross around the priest's neck proves to be the final straw for Baldwin. He kills his treacherous half-brother with a heated sword and reclaims his wife's cross, understanding that he must flee the town to escape capture and trial for the priest's murder. Baldwin eventually catches up with Godfrey's party and expresses his desire to join them. He is accepted, and Godfrey begins training him in sword fighting. Their peaceful training is interrupted by soldiers led by Godfrey's nephew, dispatched by Godfrey's brother to apprehend Baldwin. A skirmish ensues, resulting in the defeat of the soldiers, but Godfrey is injured by an arrow to his side, and several of his men perish. Later, Hospitaller tends to Godfrey's wounds and conveys that his survival is uncertain. They continue their journey and encounter a man named Guy de Lusignan. Tension brews between Godfrey and Guy. After several days, the party arrives in Messina, where Godfrey is admitted to a hospital. Baldwin visits his newfound father, and Godfrey reveals that in Jerusalem, the roles are reversed. The man who begged in France now owns a house, while the man who had a house in France is now a beggar in Jerusalem. Baldwin expresses his desire for forgiveness, and Godfrey explains that Baldwin must serve the king, as there is an opportunity for peace between Christians and Muslims in Jerusalem. The following scene depicts Baldwin being guided around Jerusalem by one of his father's sergeants. They observe Muslims playing by the shore, and the sergeant explains that Muslims are allowed to pray as long as they pay taxes. He even translates an Arabic prayer for Baldwin, who notices its striking similarity to the Christian prayer. Later, Guy de Lusignan walks past Baldwin and informs him that Jerusalem will soon be a place inhospitable to Muslims and their allies.
And me.
The sergeant confides in Baldwin that Guy is destined to become a king one day. That night, Baldwin is summoned to see his father. Godfrey and Hospitaller, accompanied by other holy men, await him. Godfrey imparts wisdom to Baldwin, urging him to be courageous in facing enemies and protecting the helpless. After delivering these words, Godfrey slaps his son soundly and hands him a sword. Hospitaller then proclaims Baldwin as a knight and Baron of Evelyn. Tragically, Godfrey passes away due to his injuries, marking the beginning of Baldwin's journey to Jerusalem. As Baldwin and others embark on their journey, their ship is struck by a storm, leaving Baldwin and a horse as the sole survivors of the wreck. When Baldwin releases the horse from the wreckage with the intent of riding it, the horse flees in panic. Alone in the desert, Baldwin eventually stumbles upon a small stream of water. As he quenches his thirst, the horse from the shore joins him. Baldwin wastes no time in trying to regain control of the horse. In the midst of this, Baldwin encounters a Muslim cavalier and his servant, leading to a confrontation over ownership of the horse. Baldwin defeats the horseman but shows mercy to the servant named Ahmad, asking him to guide him to Jerusalem. Upon their arrival in Jerusalem, Baldwin presents the horse to Ahmad and sets him free. Ahmad reveals that his deceased master was a significant cavalier among the Saracens. Baldwin expresses his intention to pray for the fallen cavalier, and Ahmad responds with a smile, suggesting that his virtues will be known to his enemies long before they meet him. Balin inquires around to determine the location of Christ's crucifixion and then navigates through the city to reach the site. As night descends, he sits there and buries his wife's cross as a solemn tribute. In the next part of the story, as Balin walks around Jerusalem, he draws the attention of some men due to the sword strapped to his back. These men follow him and eventually confront him, inquiring if he knew Godfrey. Given that the sword belonged to him, Balin confirms his relationship to Godfrey, providing accurate details about Godfrey's height and eye color. The men then show their respect for Balin, as they were formerly loyal to Godfrey and now acknowledge him as Godfrey's son. Meanwhile, Godfrey is shown enjoying a life of luxury as the master of the house. In contrast, Balin remains humble and straightforward, refraining from indulging in frivolous pursuits. One day, while in the yard, a woman riding a horse enters. She inquires about Balin's master, to which he responds that he has none. After offering her water, she instructs Balin to inform Balin, son of Godfrey, that Sabila called for him. Simultaneously, Hospitaller arrives and asks Balin about his impression of Jerusalem. Balin expresses his loss of faith, as he feels God does not communicate with him, even at the hill where Christ died. Hospitaller emphasizes that religion is not paramount. Rather, it is a tool of politics and an excuse for those who commit heinous acts. True holiness, he explains, lies in doing what is right and having courage on behalf of the defenseless. Goodness, he adds, is defined by the daily actions one chooses. Hospitaller then takes Balin to a square where two Templars are being hanged. He elucidates that the king has maintained peace with Sultan Saladin and permitted Jerusalem to be a place of prayer for all religions, mirroring the Muslims' intentions. The Templars face execution for killing Arabs. Subsequently, they meet the Marshal of Jerusalem, Tiberius, who is in an audience with Reynaldo di Castilian. According to a Muslim witness, Reynaldo was responsible for ordering a raid that led to the hanging of one of the Templars. Reynaldo vehemently denies the accusation and challenges Tiberius to prove it. Tiberius warns Reynaldo that his title will not always shield him from consequences. Reynaldo departs, and Tiberius discusses Godfrey's death with Balin and Hospitaller, revealing that it occurred at a precarious time, as provocations like the Templars' actions could push Sultan Saladin, who commands a vast army, into war. Both the king and the sultan desire peace. Later, Balin is invited to dine with the courtiers. Cibola arrives with her husband, Guy de Lusignan, who harbors disdain for Balin and leaves the table, refusing to dine with someone he deems unworthy. Tiberius questions Guy about meeting Reynaldo, but Guy denies any such plans. Tiberius suspects their collusion and knows they are involved. Just then, a messenger arrives, relaying the king's request to meet with Balin. Cibola offers to escort him, expressing admiration for Balin's father and her intention to be a true friend to Balin. Balin meets King Baldwin IV, a kind-hearted young man afflicted with leprosy and near death.
When I was 16, I won a great victory. Now I know I shall not see 30.
The king, who holds great respect for Godfrey, instructs Balin to tend to Evelyn and report when required. Following the king's orders, Balin heads to Evelyn, where he discovers a vast piece of land in dire need of water. He orders the construction of a well and, despite his noble status as baron, works alongside the people, guiding the project. The land begins to flourish, and Balin earns the respect of his subjects. Cibola visits Evelyn and stays for some time, as her husband is away. An attraction between Balin and Cibola grows, eventually leading to an affair. In the subsequent events of the story, Guy de Lusignan conspires with Reynald to attack a Sakuran, Muslim, caravan, resulting in the deaths of many Sakuran and violating the peace pact made by King Baldwin IV. In response, Sultan Saladin marches on Reynald's castle, Carrick, to hold him accountable for his crimes. Balin and his men go to protect the castle, bravely facing Saladin's cavalry despite being outnumbered. This act gives the villagers time to escape but results in Balin and his men being captured in the enemy camp. Balin encounters Ahmad the servant he had freed earlier, who is revealed to be Saladin's chancellor. Ahmad releases Balin, allowing him to enter Carrick. Saladin arrives with his army to besiege Carrick, and King Baldwin IV approaches to negotiate with him.
Withdrawal, we will all die here. Do we have terms?
We have terms.
The two rulers successfully negotiate a Muslim retreat, and Baldwin vows to punish Reynald for his crimes. However, Baldwin's health deteriorates further due to the strain of travel. On his deathbed, Baldwin asks Balin to marry Sibylla, knowing of their affection for each other. However, Balin refuses, as the marriage would necessitate Guy's death. Upon Baldwin's death, Sibylla's 6-year-old son, Baldwin V, becomes the king of Jerusalem. Sadly, it becomes evident that the young king is also afflicted with leprosy. Grief-stricken and unwilling to see her son suffer, Sibylla administers poison to him. She succeeds him as queen and names Guy the king of Jerusalem. Guy releases Reynold and, in response to Reynold's request, starts a war by murdering Saladin's sister. When Saladin demands the return of his sister's body, the heads of those responsible, and the surrender of Jerusalem, Gaius retaliates by massacring the emissary and sending his head back to Damascus. In the year 1187, the new king and his council decide to wage war, believing it to be God's will. They leave Jerusalem under the defense of Balin and his knights, leaving the city unguarded. Saladin's army attacks the Crusader army near the city of Hadon, resulting in the Battle of Hadon. Guy's exhausted and dehydrated Crusader army is annihilated. Guy and Reynold are captured, and Reynold is executed for his crimes. Saladin spares Guy out of tradition. Back in Jerusalem, Balin prepares the city's defenses, while Tiberius departs for Cyprus and knights all able-bodied men to inspire them.
It is only one man.
No.
They know they cannot defeat the Saracens, but they hope to hold their enemies off long enough for Saladin to offer terms. After 3 days of fighting, Saladin offers terms, and Balin surrenders Jerusalem, ensuring safe passage for all inhabitants to Christian lands. Balin returns to the people, delivering the news of their safe passage, and they cheer. He reflects on everything that has transpired and tells Sibylla that her brother's kingdom was in his head and his heart, which can never be surrendered. As the Christians prepare to leave the city, Guy, released and humiliated, confronts Balin one last time and challenges him to a fight. Balin defeats Guy but spares his life. Guy pleads for Balin to kill him, but Balin urges him to rise as a knight if he decides to rise again. As the Christians leave the city, Balin bids farewell to his Christian and Muslim friends. Imad returns the horse to Balin, and they exchange words of peace in each other's language. While bidding farewell to his friends, Saladin and the Muslims settle into their new home. In the marching column of Christian citizens, Balin finds Sibylla, who has renounced her claim to the title of Queen of Jerusalem and officially separated from Guy. They hold hands, smiling at each other as they walk toward the sea. Balin and Sibylla leave the village for good, passing by the grave of Balin's wife, and ride towards a new life together. An epilogue states that King Richard the Lionheart would later embark on a new crusade to the Holy Land. Despite his efforts and struggles, peace in the kingdom of heaven remains elusive, even after nearly 1,000 years. If you are interested in such films, please proceed to the next video on the screen, and also share your thoughts about this film in the comments. Give us a like and subscribe. Goodbye.